Hey folks, Jim, Slick Audio. Are we live? We're live. I am actually holding the last signature Jackson that I had made by Mike Shannon. Big Koa fan. Anyways, the purpose of the video, so let's get right into it, is to the question: how do you build an amp rack? As in amp rack for a studio. And as you can see by the pile of heads here, which I will go through and explain each one of them and as briefly as I can, you want to be able to record with all these wonderful, beautiful glass tubes, you know what I mean, that we have, as well as the digital stuff. So it's kind of a mix of all the above, right? And when I first started looking into it, for as long as I've been doing this, there's just nothing out there that explains how to do it. And look, there are a lot of ways to do it, but there really truly is a right way to do it. And I'm going to attempt to show you that. As my wiring is not necessarily the neatest in the world, sorry. It is what it is. It's functional, it works, and I should probably tidy it up a little bit more. But so, it starts with getting a good quality sturdy rack. Most studios like Pete Thorne, I'm going to mention Pete's name several times. If you've never heard of Pete Thorne, you really need to check out his videos and his YouTube channel. And he is a session guitarist extraordinaire, and he's touring musician with Melissa Etheridge. Amazing player, amazing guy. But anyway, so this is actually his signature head. Pete Thorne had a PT100. I'll explain more about that in a minute. But anyways, Pete has a wood frame and build-out boxes in his studio, as a lot of studios I have. I've got these, what do they call these things?
Metro
racks. So, I went with the super heavy-duty Metro rack, just because I had so bloody many of them and I needed it on wheels. So, long story. But anyways, so, but you need something super high quality, because if you don't have that, you're pretty much looking for a lot of trouble. Because there's a lot of weight sitting here and even more money. So you definitely want to make sure that you've got the right gear, to hold it. So this little rack next to it is actually part of it. I'm going to go over the heads first, and I'll show you the cabinets, and then I'm going to explain how all this crap is connected together. So you'll see numbers on here. They're the numbers that correspond with the numbers on a switching system that I've got over here, and so I'll get into more detail with it. So up here we have the Sewer Pete Thorne PT100 Signature Edition amp. I actually just got this thing a week or so ago, and oh my God, it's amazing. Moving over here, I'm just going to go down. This is actually a Rockman XP100. Actually has speakers built right into it. There was the XPR and then the XP100. So I have an XPR over there, and I've got a lot of Rockman gear. So if you're a Boston fan, you just can't help it. These are just rare pieces. Here we have an Ampete 1. It is a Marshall-esque style head. Great sounding head. LA Custom PO50. Watch Devin Townsend's going to be having his own signature. He actually played through this one, and I beat him to it. Sorry, Dev. He's going to have his own signature edition. I think it's PO100 that's going to be. But anyways, I got this from Carlos Horacio right at NAMM. He was a neighbor, and I heard this thing screaming, and I went down and played through it. It was like, holy shit, this thing's killer. So anyways, that's an LA Custom PO50. Here we have a BRBS. This is Sebastiano Barbarito. Made it an actual EX3 Mark II Signature Edition for me. So this is actually my flavor. So you go out to the site, you're not going to be able to buy this amp. But he can make you something similar. But I wanted this amp to be a mix of several amps, my Angle and a little bit of Bogner, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little Mark V. So I wanted a little bit of Mesa and a little bit of Angle kind of wrapped up into one with some Marshall-esque, and that's kind of what he built me. So this is a custom deal. We have a Bogner Ecstasy. This is, dear God, just an amazing amplifier. If you're a Steve Lukather fan, I'm a big Luke fan. This is what he uses on stage, and they sound killer. You know, just mellow grind. I don't know how else to explain that. Engel Special Edition E670 EL34. This is the EL34 edition, hence you can tell by the blue LEDs in the back. If this were the 6L6 version, it would have red LEDs in the back. They don't make this anymore. They stopped making it. Ooh, it's dusty. It's bad. Which is an absolute shame, because this is one of the best sounding heads I've ever played through. I love all these, so I'm going to say that about every one of them. But it is what it is. We have the Mesa Mark V. This is the head, and actually the combo's underneath it. This amp is, I toured with these for a long time. They're incredible. And then when the TC50s came out, the Triple Crowns from Mesa, I had to latch on to one of them too. I was an old stiletto user. I had stiletto deuce, ace, actually 2 deuces, an ace, and I can't remember, the Trident. And they were killer. It was like a Brit sounding. It's like an American Marshall. So that when they discontinued them, they came out with the Triple Crown. It's kind of like the new Marshall-esque, flavored Mesa. So, and I'm not a big Marshall fan. It's a really odd part, but some of these other designs, like the MP at the sewer, these things are wild. So moving to here, I actually do have 2 amps here. This is actually John Petrucci's. This is really a Mark II C+, but it's the JP2C. So it's his version of the Mark II C Plus from Mesa Boogie. Need I say any more? Probably the most iconic amp ever. And then up here we have a multi-amp from DV Mark, which is a digital solid state. So when I go out and gig around now, at my freaking age, this is nice and light. This is what I take along with the DV Mark cab. So talking to cabs, we'll come back to this rack here in a moment, guys. We're going to walk into the deafness room. So in here, I know it's tight, and this is the room. If you stood in here, closing the door or not, and I happen to turn some of these on, not only would you go deaf, it'd probably kill you. But starting from this side, so we have a DV Mark. This is the Neoclassic 212. So this thing's like super light. It weighs 25 pounds. I don't know. And there's another DV Mark. This is the 412 version of that. So these two would be the 2 that I take out with that DV Mark. They're stereo cabs, and it's like perfectly matched with that DV Mark amp, the multi-amp. And it sounds killer. I first heard of that when Marcos Foley, great guy, good friend, and killer guitar player, one of my all-time favorites. He was playing through this thing, and I'm listening. I'm like, God, it sounds just like a Mark V. And here was a DV Mark multi-amp. Just absolutely amazing stuff, made in Italy as well. Keep this thing moving. We have a Mesa Boogie Recto 212 slant. We have a BRBS 212 that's actually the twin match to my custom-made head. So this is the custom-made cab for that. It's 212 vintage 30s. These are vintage 30s in here as well. This is a Mesa Recto 412 vintage 30s. I like vintage 30s. Can you figure? Go figure. So I'm going to shift over to this side. We have an Engel. This is the Pro cab, not the XL, but the Pro, or XXL, but the Pro, just a regular Pro. So it's the 16-ply Baltic birch cab with 4 V30s in it. In my opinion, is the best sounding cab that I have. My favorite. I have the LA Custom 212. I'm not sure what Carlo put in that. This is actually a wide body 112 Mesa Recto. I did this when I was using my Mark V combo, so I could have a second if I needed a little extra shot of noise, loudness. That's that. I have the 212 Pro cab from Engel, so it's basically the little brother to the 412. And then of course I got the sewer, the PT Pete Thorne 212. So it's got 2 creamback speakers in it, sealed cab. So, and you'll notice all kinds of stands, mic stands and stuff in here. So there's times when you just want to capture a real cabinet, right? So that's why this room exists, and why we keep the lights out, air conditioning in there, and the bloody door closed. So, go deaf. So these are all connected to every one of them. All right, so that's the part. How do you do it? So now that I've explained what I have, now I'm going to explain one last piece. Actually, there is actually effects going through almost everything here. And there is actually a caveat to that. It actually goes through everything except for the Rockman, because what's the point? It's solid state. And the multi-amp, what's the point? Because it's solid state. Everything else, it goes through. So what I have in my effects rack, ignore this. This is just a tube power amp. I've got a crap load of pre's, and I toured with them for a little while, so that was good stuff. But anyways, so power conditioner, wireless unit, line 690s. Yeah, it's an old Sabine, strobe tuner. I like strobe tuners. Give me a Peterson. One day that'll get switched out for a Peterson rack tuner, I'm sure. I've got two trays of goodies here. I've got the more Devin Townsend. I've got the Luke distortion pedal. I've got the Jeter Buck Dharma pedal there. I've got Freak Out pedal there. Actually, Pete Thorne, you're the guy that introduced me to that, so thank you. And then there's two Eventide units here, and a drop tune or something below. This is RGM effects gizmo. And just to point down on the bottom, you'll see there's a Mastermind GT22 here as well. That is by far the best switcher I have ever used, and I'd never switch back. Get it? That was bad. I also have a Voodoo Labs GCX in here as a loop switcher. We have Rocktron Hush, and then of course an Axe FX 2XL Plus. So that is strictly being used for effects, and I'll explain on the board here in a moment. So basically what I've done, I have pretty much one major patch that I use on my Axe FX, and I have that unit looped in and programmed through the RJM. You'll see, notice little blue lights on here. So as I flip through some stuff, let's just say I want to add, I don't know. There, I just took two off, and you can see some lights going out. So, as you add pieces in, this unit here, let's start with the GCX, it's easier. It basically loops these effects in and out. So each one of these, there's a send, if you will, and it goes to the effect, and then out of the effect to the return of this. So that way, when I turn it off, it's a direct connection. I'm not running through the effect, so it's a true bypass. And that means less noise, and less noise is good. We want quality, right? So, and then this guy here, Effects Gizmo, is actually very similar. Does the exact same thing. It's loop switcher, and I use that. They're all MIDI controllable. The board is MIDI, of course, and all these amps, each one that is MIDI controlled, which is this, and this. They're all MIDI controlled. These two guys, I actually have the GCX unit controlling the channel switching on these. So bottom line is I can control everything from everything, and in one spot. So it's pretty cool, how we do it. So let's talk about, well, geez, I have all this stuff, so now I need to glue it together, right? Welcome to the Ampete 88S Studios. These things are the cat's meow. So basically what you have here, you'll see a bank of 8, and it says amps, so there's 8 amps and 8 cabs. And then you can daisy chain them together. And I think you can do up to 8 of these things. So obviously I have 8 more here and 8 more cabs here. So I can do 16 amps, 16 cabs. Just so happens that I'm using every damn one of them. So if I add one more amp, I got to add another one of these. I'm not doing that. My wife would kill me anyway. So, you pick a cabinet. So, for example, number 1, if you looked in the room there, every one of them has a label on it. That's my angle. And then you pick an amplifier. So, if I pick number 9, so I happen to be plugged into the sewer. I actually have I think I have the Luke on. Ocean machine on. So what I've got going on here, you're a little Devin Townsend action, right? Reverb forever. So the fact that I can switch all this stuff on and off, you know, it is nice. So if you'll notice, number 9 coincides with this little guy, number 9. Well, geez, Jim, why would you do that? All right, well, let's just say I wanted to play, I don't know, how about the EX3? So we'll play the JDS signature here. So that's amp number 1. So we'll go over to amp number 1. And then you'll take these guys and plug these in number 1. So what is this? Well, from here to here, 1 to 10, is the actual amp's sends, and this is their receives. All right, so basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the send, so this is the send from the BS amp, and I'm feeding it into this effects rack. So this is the front end of the effects rack. Then it comes out of the effects rack here. This is the return, and then it goes to the return of the amp head. That simple. So I would love this to have been electronic and mixed in with this. It's not. I can't at the time being, at least for a cost I could, but I'm not. If I can't move 2 wires, something's wrong. But still, easy matching, right? So now I flip this amp on. And now, you know, if you want, geez, Jim, let's, you know, put on some effects. And I do not have my glasses on, so not having glasses on for me is not a great thing to do. Here we go. Very easily switchable, and of course then you can add, you know, whatever you want from a loop perspective. That's all that lovely reverb coming from the Ocean Machine, that guy right there. So, you know, I have the ultimate flexibility, all right, so I'll kick that back and stand by. And geez, now I want to play, I don't know, how about the angle? Number 2, here we go. So flip over to number 2. Hit number 2, and that's simple. So any effect in my effects rack that I use all the time, and I can use it with any amplifier that I have. Obviously the exception would be, again, the Rockman. For those of you who like your Rockmans, you know, guys, that would be. So, Boston, gotta do Boston, right? So the whole concept being is, oh, and by the way, these 88S's, I can actually do up to 2 cabinets at once. So from a recording standpoint, how cool is that? I can actually do 2 cabs at one time. And you know, you want to do close miking with like a ribbon mic, and then you know, a 57 or what have you, or a condenser, and then I usually like to do a condenser back up a little bit. When I'm running 2 cabs, to do something back a little further is kind of stupid. At that point, you just run a condenser on each, or a dynamic on each, and a ribbon on each, and boy, you get this incredibly full sound. Now, one more trick up the sleeve, and one of these speaker cabinets happens to be that guy right there. So we're coming over here. Now, my cat is being, you know, my cat, Celine, what are you doing? So say hello to Celine. She's the music cat. She hangs out with me all the time. She's my baby. If you'll notice, I have a 2 Notes Torpedo Studio. This is actually one of the cabinets. So not only can I record the actual guitar tones, but I could feed into here, and I can either feed reactively or I can feed resistively. What's the difference, Jim? What's the difference, Jim? Okay, so if it's reactive, that means I'm putting this in between an amp and a speaker cab. It's the best way to mimic the sound of the amplifier, because as you're playing, as an electrical engineer, I can tell you this is true, and any musician should know this as well. When you're playing, your impedance of the amplifier and the speakers actually change as you're playing, depending on what notes are coming out, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really this dance between cabinet and amplifier. It's a glorious dance between cabinet and amp. When you play it reactively, this captures that dance. The impedance changes and all the little things that happen with the cool tubes, the glass goodies, even the cat's purring now. I'm talking tubes and this dance, and she's purring. It's a beautiful thing. And then we have resistive. That means I can have this, there's a pile of resistors in here. You'll notice there's a little opening with, and there's a fan in there that will run once I start kicking things on, things heat up. But it will actually take, mimic an 8 ohm load, and I can turn the cabinets completely off. So that way, if I needed to record super quiet, it's like 3 in the morning. My wife's an RN. She gets up at 4. She'd be like really pissed, to say the least. So I can come down here in the studio and literally crank the hell out of one of those, tube heads, get the, a great tube sound. Is it as good as the reactive side? Not quite, but it's still damn good. It's still the amp, right? So, and all I'm doing is pretty much eating up a bunch of resistors in there, and then I can capture it and use IRs, impulse responses. You can look that one up, but basically, let's consider it a fake cabinet in a fake room. So it's a simulated cabinet and room. And I don't want to say simulated, it's actually captured. It's a real response, but it's captured and then emulated through that. So you can use that, and that goes right into the DAW. Or I have the wall sound plug-in from these guys as well. More about that another day. Today's not the day for it. You'll also notice, by the way, up here there's a Kemper unit. That's a killer unit. That is actually a powered Kemper. That I use mostly. I do have it patched into the speakers in there, but I never use it. I'm going pretty much into the DAW only. And I also have an Axe-FX 3, which is another killer unit. And geez, I guess let's just talk about the pre's real quick too. Rockman XPR, which is the rack version of what you saw over there. Killer unit if you like that Boston sound. Axe-FX 3, can't say enough about that. It's killer. Mesa Triaxis, amazing tube preamp from Mesa Boogie. The Engel E570 special edition. So this is basically the preamp section of the E670 amp you saw over there. That's what I actually used to gig out with for quite a long time. I have the Jim Slick version of my BRBS and preamp as well for recording. And I have 2 of the original rock modules that came out when I was working at DPM&S as a guitar tech a bazillion years ago as a kid. So, needless to say, there's a lot of history there. So, that is basically it in a nutshell. As far as the actual diagrams, I mean, these things, take control of the guitar. I'll explain one more piece to it. So, outside of this little rack tuner here and my wireless unit, so I'm feeding this into this, and then this actually goes up to the input of the amp heat. And then from the amp heat's doing the distribution when I press number 1 or number 2. So I'm on, let's go back to number 9. So if I hit number 9, what it's doing is actually running the signal input into here. So that would be number 9. So it's controlling that, and it's also controlling then the speaker cabinets, whichever one I select. This is what's actually patching. So I have the sends and receives again coming from each head. The send would be in, so let's just say we're back to Pete's amp. Calling it Pete's amp. It's a John Sears amp or Pete Thorne's amp. I guess it's kind of both, right? So we're looking at the send coming out of this amp right now to the send here, and then the receive to the receive. So my bottoms are receives, tops are sends. I know I said that before. I'm reiterating that. So that way you have the full pack, guys. So you have this feeding, into the head. Then we've got a send coming out, going into the effects, coming back out of the effects. It's called the return, to the return of the head. And then the speaker output of this goes into these guys, and then I can choose which speaker cabinet in the other room that I want. needless to say, you're going to need a crap load of frickin' 12 gauge speaker wire, long ones, and don't go any less than 12 gauge. Anybody tells you can use 14 or 16, they're full of poop. Don't do it. 12 gauge only, or even 10 if you can do it, but 12 is sufficient. Even up to 30-foot runs, you're okay with 12 gauge, but after that, then you want to go to 10 gauge. So just telling you to keep your head in shape. Ooh, that was bad. Sorry, man. You know, it's Friday and it's late. So that is it. That's how to build a guitar rack. And then, of course, you have a crap load of programming and MIDI programming to do. These are all daisy-chained via MIDI. I explained that already. The ones that are MIDI capable. So you got an awful lot of programming to do. It's not for the faint of heart. It takes weeks to get this thing down properly and to get all the little kinks and bugs worked out, because, like I found out, you can very easily switch 2 wires around, even though 10's supposed to go to 10, 11's supposed to go 11. Jim switched them around and put 10 and 11, 11 and 10, and I'm sitting there wondering why the hell 2 amps didn't work. So, open your eyes, think. When you're burned out, walk away, come back another day. Just trying to give you some words of wisdom. But that's it. That's how to put together an amp rack, guitar amp rack for studio, or if you're a bass player, same thing, right? You know, it's an amp is an amp, and an amp's not an amp. But for the purpose of this video, whether you're a bass player or a guitar player, an amp's an amp. So input, send, receive, output. That simple. That is it for the day. I think that's enough. If you have any questions, you can give us a call, and I'll be glad to help you out. One last piece to show. Chris, you can back up here for a second. Amp for those 88 S's, I can actually control that via here as well. So if I want to, pick which one you want. I'd use that one amp too. So there you go. Pretty cool stuff, right? I think that's wild. I mean, the ability to be able to change these units from, right from I'm sitting at the console kind of makes all the sense in the world. So, especially, well, geez, yes, I know I have to get up to do this, so, give me a break. I tried. That's it. Any questions can be called, and we will be at Summer NAMM in 6 weeks. 327?
I think it's 26. It might be 27.
It's 320. I think it's 320. I don't know why I'm thinking 327. But anyways, we're going to be at Summer NAMM. Look it up. Come on down and see us in Nashville. Incredible city, incredible people. Just a great place to be, man. And then we will be at the AES show in October. And that is, I believe, 317 is going to be our booth number there. And a lot of happening stuff. Of course, we'll be at Winter NAMM as well in LA, or Anaheim, LA, in January. So we'll be at all 3. Please come stop by, say hello, buy a Slick Audio computer. We would greatly appreciate that. Keeps us doing our thing, and you get to experience the magic of what we have. We're going to be doing an episode next week, God willing, for time, providing the cat doesn't snuff out anything on the console, of course. But we're going to do a little demo. I've got one of our new T4200s in there, running Thunderbolt RME gear, so the UFX Plus, so killer stuff, and we'll be doing some rundowns and a lot of new videos based on that. But I wanted to start here because being, a guitar player and a keyboard player, guitar is a love. Even though I'm getting rusty as hell, I just felt, this was a question to me that needed to be answered. And I personally saw on some forums the other day where people were looking for, how the hell do you do this? Well, now you know. Expensive, pretty simple, and patience. Folks, have a great weekend. Safe weekend. God bless. Cheers.
You want to play us out?
Do I want to play it? Well, you really don't. You all don't want me playing now. I mean, my God, how freaking rusty I am. He's going to be making fun of me soon. 9, 1, and what did I turn off? See, even those of us who are, oh, well, remember what I said about learning how to do things, right? I don't have this one programmed yet, but listen to that frickin' head, man. I'll run 2 cabs at once with it. Thank you. See ya.